Welcome and bienvenue. Welcome. My name is Eric, and this week we are going to be diving into Robert Bresson's 1956 film, A Man Escaped. Now, coming off of what I would consider an epic with Once Upon a Time in the West, Robert Bresson takes things a little bit slower, and I love that. The movie is based on the true story of André Devigny. He was a school teacher who joined the army in 1939 before World War II broke out officially. And in 1943, his anti-Nazi movement was infiltrated and he was sent to the Montluc prison, thought to be at that time inescapable. Now, before I go and spoil everything, because the movie is titled as such, guess what? He escapes. After Andre's escape, the Germans took his cousins and sent them off to death camps. He would continue to fight in the army and was even honored with the Cross of Liberation. After writing his memoir of his escape, Robert Bresson was so captured by it, he decided to make it the basis of this film. In 1971, after his retirement, he wanted to get into politics, but he decided against it because, and I quote, "When I realized the backstabbing was far worse than anything I'd ever experienced in secret warfare." Andre would go on to live until 1999. Now, how he escapes is really quite remarkable, but we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to give you some of that history before we dive into the film because I feel like it gives such tremendous weight to the movie. Hi, Pepper. Yes, you're very cute. Scooch. Get out. No. As we dive into the film, I will be going into some of the religious imagery that I found that I really loved, and as well as some of my favorite shots within the film. So if you want to avoid spoilers, I would go to the timestamp below. From the very beginning of the film, we are given a very claustrophobic feeling from the director, Robert Bresson. It opens with a shot of a close-up of our main character's hands in shackles, and he tries to escape immediately, giving us just a little bit of a taste of what we could expect from him. His first attempt at escape. Pepper. Stop! Stop! His first attempt is a failure, and he is quickly beaten and thrown into a cell 9 by 6 wide, barely big enough to hold a small bed and a stone shelf. In the cell next to Fontaine is a character whom we never get to see, a silent prisoner who communicates through taps within the walls. He is the one that teaches Fontaine that with a safety pin he can unlock his shackles. Using the men in the courtyard that have a little bit more freedom than he does, he's able to obtain a safety pin and unlocks his shackles, and we immediately feel the weight lifted from him. We get a wonderful sense of relief as he lets his hands fall, but our character is smart. As soon as the guards start coming, he immediately puts the shackles back on. Then he gets transferred to cell 106. He gets moved to a new cell in a new part of the prison where we get to meet a couple of different other characters, namely his neighbor, Blanchette. Now, Blanchette is an older prisoner who at this point in the story has already tried to take his own life because he's just given up. He sees that there's no escape, and yet Fontaine sees opportunity. Through the coming days, we meet other prisoners, one of whom is named Orsini. Orsini and Fontaine talk briefly here and there while they wash up, but the guards quickly shoot them down. One thing I want to bring up with older movies is that, for me, a lot of them make me fall asleep because the pacing is off or it's just a little too long, it drags out too much. But I would say that's not the case for this film. I felt that every single shot was intentional. Apparently, Poppy wants to come into this frame. No, you can't sit there. You can't sit there. Sometimes I will look at a scene and I will think, why are we here? What is the purpose of this scene? Do I need to pay attention? For this movie, I didn't think those things at all. Each and every shot of this film, I feel, is deliberate, intentional. Nothing is used to just pad out the time. And even though it might feel slow at times, it is building to something extraordinary. I also want to highlight Bresson's use of close-up camera work to create that feeling of claustrophobia. The only wide angles we really get are establishing shots or a couple of shots of multiple prisoners together. Everything else feels tight, whether it is a close-up of our main characters or a shot of the prisoners walking together. It's all so closed in. I mean, it feels obviously intentional, like we're in a prison. There are also some beautiful shots within the film that, to me, evoke artistic expression. One that I'll highlight, which was actually the Criterion Collection's cover, is as Fontaine is creating this rope using wire and fabric, he creates a ring and completes it with his hands. And to me, it looks like a crown of thorns that Jesus would have worn on his head. Back to the film. So Orsini attempts to escape from the prison. He basically makes a run for it during broad daylight, but fails. He's then taken back to his cell and beaten terribly. Now, all of this action occurs off screen, and Orsini comes to Fontaine and tells him that if he is going to try to escape, that he needs to create a hook. As time passes, Fontaine continues to press on in the face of adversity. Orsini is killed off screen.
Nicodème lui dit: comment un homme peut-il naître quand il est vieux? Comment peut-il rentrer dans le sein de sa mère et naître? Jésus répondit: ne t'étonne pas que je t'ai dit, il faut que vous naissiez de nouveau. Le vent souffle où il veut et tu en entends le bruit, mais tu ne sais d'où il vient ni où il va. Vous m'écoutez? Je t'écoute. C'est lui. Tu es sûr? Sûr. Peut-on être sûr ici de quelque chose?
The other prisoners beg Fontaine to reconsider his escape plan. They feel it is futile, that it will end in his death. And maybe they're right. As Fontaine ponders this, he gets taken to his sentencing, where he is told that he will be executed by firing squad the next morning. Just when he gets all the pieces in place, as he gets back to his cell, he finds a new prisoner there. Jost, a 16-year-old German deserter. Dressed in a half-German, half-French uniform, Jost presents a kind of mental roadblock for Fontaine. He knows he has to go, but does he take this young boy with him and risk being caught? Is the young boy a spy sent to alert the guards to his presence? He has to make a choice. Time is running out. Fontaine decides to bring Jost along, which proves to be vital to his escape. Fontaine and Jost make their way across the rooftops, using the train passing by as cover for their noise and their footsteps. When they come to the first guard patrol, Fontaine has to make a decision. Does he try to make a break for it, or kill the guard? He ends up killing the guard. This happens off screen. He kills him with a bayonet, according to the story by Andre. Then we make it to a large wall where Fontaine realizes that he can't get up it by himself, even with the rope. He needs the help of Jost.
Seul, je serais peut-être resté là.
In the final stretch, we see a guard riding a bicycle as it creaks and creaks and creaks. Freedom is so close, it is just a stone's throw away. But Fontaine is getting cold feet. After a long pause and reflection, he decides to go for it. He waits until the guard is passing, throws the rope over, the hook catches properly, and he shimmies his way across. As Jost and him fall to the ground on the opposite side of the wall, they run off into the mist, and they are free. I think a lot of us can relate to Fontaine as a character. I mean, he stands firm in the face of an adverse environment. There are a lot of points within this film that he could have just easily given up, probably even died, accept his fate, but he doesn't. He persists. He fights back tooth and nail for freedom. There are points in our lives where we feel trapped, whether it be through massive debt, a job that is sucking the soul out of us, or a bad relationship. Whether we choose to fight back, in and of itself, is a freedom. I do admire his patience and his dedication. I mean, he takes a methodical approach because he has to. If he fails, it's all over. And to think, this all really happened. Andre pulled all of this off and continued to fight. As I watched Fontaine and Jost run off into the mists of Lyon, I thought to myself, what would I have done? Would I have had the mental fortitude to keep going like that? It's hard for me to say, personally. I think it depends on where you are in life. What I will say is that there is a little Fontaine in all of us. As people, there is always this desire to fight back, whether it is a small one or a large one. Deep down, we choose to find freedom in all things. Freedom of choice, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I encourage you to watch this film, not because it is part of the greatest movies of all time list, but because there is a power in this film that I think you can't truly understand until you see it. Some other things I wanted to point out was that the rope that was used in the film was the actual rope that Andre used to escape Montluc, which I thought was really cool. Robert Bresson, as a director, was known for hiring basically unknown actors or random people to be in his films. He believed that established actors often took away from the environment and the setting and also the story of what he was trying to create. And he didn't want to have any sort of expectation when it comes to these characters, which I admire. I think I really want to watch more of Bresson's work and see if I can find more themes that I enjoy. I'm sure I will. The last thing I want to talk about briefly is Bresson's use of religious themes in this movie. About a quarter of the way through the film, we meet a priest who has been thrown into the prison. He is continuously giving Fontaine Bible verses to keep him going. And one interaction that I really love is this.
Vous ne priez jamais.
Ça m'arrive.
Quand les choses vont mal,
Oui,
c'est commode.
trop commode.
Ce serait trop commode si Dieu se chargeait de tout.
There are many moments where Fontaine could maybe lose his faith within this prison. It could almost feel like a spiritual prison in a way, but his drive and determination kept him going. It's truly remarkable. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I so greatly appreciate it. I know this week was a bit shorter than last week, but sometimes they're going to be like that. I think there's one movie on this list that's like a half hour long. There's not a whole lot to get into there, but I really appreciate you following me along with this journey. It means the world to me. Now, have you seen A Man Escaped? If so, what are your thoughts? What are some of your favorite moments? I'd love to hear about them. Leave a comment down below, and if you like what you see, please subscribe and follow along with me on this journey. It would really mean the world to me. As always, I'll see you all next week. See ya.